Right. It is my honor and pleasure to introduce Professor Bhuvana Krishnaswamy. Professor Bhuvana is an EC department alumnus from the 2011 batch, and she's a professor at University of Wisconsin. And we have an exciting topic from her as a wireless expert, talking about wireless networks. So without any delay, Bhuvana, please, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Karthik. And I think those of us who are here, if you can, do turn on your videos. But I understand if it's difficult, that's okay. But every now and then, maybe we can have some chat. And as you can imagine from the seminars that we've been going through, this can be more of a conversation. I'm quite confident in the 2 days, one cannot become an expert in an area. So as is more of an introduction to some of the wireless research that I'm working on, that I'm interested in. So feel free to stop me or post questions in the middle of our discussion. And as I was mentioning a few minutes ago, there is a Google form that I've posted in the chat now. I think everyone who has joined can see that. So again, these are questions that we'll discuss, and more of a validation of our discussion, in that if we talk about certain concepts, I just want to get a sense of how it's clear to all of us. So simple questions. So don't worry too much about the questions themselves, but as a way for us to lead the conversation forward. But before I go to wireless, I did want to just chat a little bit about how I reached wireless to the kind of problems that I'm working on now. And I think it's been a zigzag journey coming to wireless. So one of the reasons I want to talk about is to tell you guys that keep your minds open about new topics of research. So individually, I grew up in Nagarkoil, Kanyakumari. Oh, you're not able to see the form. Sorry. Let me paste that form again. Okay, so that's the link to Google form. And you won't be answering anything just yet. I'll give you heads up as we are talking about the question. So can you view one question at a time? So yeah, I grew up in Kanyakumari, Nagarkoil. I have two siblings. We all grew up there. And by my middle school, maybe, we moved to Chennai because both my siblings were going to college in Chennai. So that change was a major change in my life. That was my first change, and I was overwhelmed by Chennai, and I think that was also a wake-up call in that, yeah, change is fun to do. I was so sad to leave my friends, go to a new place, but it was really one of the funnest experiences my high school time. So that was my first change, I would say, in terms of location, in terms of friends. Then I moved to Chennai, did my high school and so on, came into CEG. So I wouldn't say I was passionate about ECE or I was passionate about computer science. I didn't know. I knew electrical computer had good demand, and I was able to get into CEG. I'm like, okay, I'm definitely taking that. But I think once I got into ECE, once I started taking classes, in your first year, you all know that you won't be learning anything about electrical, right? But in my very first year, majority of my sciences faculty, my math, physics, and chemistry professors, I think they also tune some of our concepts towards engineering. So every time we, for example, when we talked about Fourier transform, our math professor would say where Fourier transform was useful. When she taught us Laplace transform, she said circuit theory is where you're going to first use Laplace transform. So I think every step of the way in my first year, I started appreciating electrical engineering more and more, because I realized the concepts that we want from other domains are being applied here. So that it was after getting into electrical engineering or electrical and computer engineering is where I started appreciating other sciences that we study in our high school, we study in our first years, right? And the reason I bring this up is I'm still in touch with my first semester maths professor. I meet her every year. I go back, I think, and she was one of my letter writers for grad school. I talked to her at least on an yearly basis, one of my most favorite teachers in CEG as well. So, and then my English teacher too. So it doesn't have to be exactly related to your research or line of study, but my English teacher in CEG had a major impact in me going to grad school. She reviewed my research statement, my statement of purpose. Yeah, okay. I'm seeing myself. I suddenly realized that. Give me a second. Maybe I can still go back to gallery view if that's okay. Yeah, so I think CG again is in my heart always, and every year when I visit India, I go back to campus. I meet as many professors as I can. I'm missing home, India, for the last 2 years. I could not visit, and I'm missing CG too. I'm not able to visit campus. I've been in touch with people remotely. So when Karthik reached out about a seminar here, I think this was my way of coming back to campus, and I love that I'm able to do it. And I'm hoping in the future you guys feel the same way, and you feel like you can be in touch with the campus as well. It's of course now you are in there. When you leave, I think you're going to miss campus a lot. But after my undergrad and towards end of my undergrad, I think I was applying to grad school. One of the major reasons I want to apply to grad school was I love teaching. Even as an undergrad in my class, again, my math professor in my first semester, she put me up to the task of helping another student who was in one of the national sports teams, and they could not attend classes on a regular basis. So for some reason, she thought I could be a good teacher for him. And she just put me up to the task of helping the other person catch up with some of the classes. And that exercise really helped me love teaching more and more. I think I might have forcefully taught many of my classmates in my first few semesters. They still tell me their frustration on how much I made them sit with me to talk about some of the, I think, engineering mechanics and engineering drawing classes. I enjoyed them. I think a lot of them hated it, but I made them sit through that after classes just so that I can have fun teaching them. So right from my first semester, I enjoyed teaching. I didn't understand what research was. In fact, until end of my undergrad, I had no idea what research meant. But I realized if I want to teach in a good place, I want to have a PhD. So that was all I had as motivation to do a PhD. And in terms of my area of research and PhD, once again, just like I was after my high school, I was clueless, but I'd done some CMOS and VLSI electives with PVR sir. And I thought I've done some advanced courses, so maybe that's the path I want to go. So my first draft of SOP said that I want to work on CMOS and VLSI. But in my sixth semester, one of my friends told me that there is a summer internship opportunity in IIT Madras, and the deadline is tonight. So 5 p.m. is the deadline. So, and I think he was telling me around noon. So I had to put together a package in the next 5 hours. Thankfully, we live in Velachery, so I could go home, put together certain things, print out everything, and I physically went and dropped my package at 4:55 because I didn't have time to mail the package and still be delivered before deadline. I thought, of course, I'm not going to get this. And I put together something in 5 hours. But I think that year, IIT Madras was very generous. They gave more offers than they usually give. So I ended up spending a summer in IIT Madras as a summer intern, doing some research in networking. And I learned to do some programming on FPGA, and we implemented certain physical and MAC layer protocols. I'm guessing from the last few lectures, you guys are familiar with network stack. So yeah, anyway, we talked about, we implemented a few things, but again, as a newbie to networking research, it was, I don't think I contributed much to my advisor's research, but I certainly learned a lot on how to program on certain things. And I took a lot from that. And I think it was at the end of that summer internship, I realized something that I enjoyed doing some hands-on work. I liked seeing some output in the screen. So that's the level of understanding that I had about research, that I liked simulations and experiments more than theory. Until that point, I thought I really enjoyed maths and maybe theory is the route I should go, but this was an eye-opener for me. So I did want to bring this up because because of the earlier comment that I made on keeping your minds open. So the same summer internship, the same friend who told me about this, he broadcast that to the entire class, but majority of us did not take it seriously and did not submit that application. Some of us who did, we did get that internship. So I was not the only one. I think 2 of us from my class got that internship, and 2 others from a different department got the internship. So it's possible that if more people had applied, more positions would have been open. But if you hear certain opportunities and if you think this might even remotely help you, and if you can afford to do that, certainly take up opportunities. It won't hurt you to try these things out in life. And especially as an undergrad, I think we have enough time in our hands to explore. Even if we are going to fail completely in that, it's okay. But when you fail, you'll know that, yeah, this is not the path you want. So at least you can cross that off your list of topics that you want to explore, right? So if I think this is your majority of you are in 6th semester, I believe. So if it might still not be too late, if you're not planning any summer internships, or if you're not planning any summer projects for you, keep that option open. That will help you a lot in not only boost your resume, but boost your own understanding of what you like and what you don't like. And again,
can I interrupt in this and ask
sure,
a question,
yeah.
I think so students may be shy asking questions. So I think it may be a good idea to understand maybe a little more about what this internship in IIT Madras was, which department, or what is there a name for it? Is there maybe a website or a link?
Actually, so that's a good question. I did not think through this when I was telling the story. I don't remember this, but I can look up and share with you later. I don't think there was a website for that. We received some email, I think, from the department, or some students received that email and they broadcast that information. But this was a paid summer internship in IIT Madras that some faculty were offering. It was not a centralized internship position, I believe. But I'll make a note to send this link. I'll just make a note to myself. And IIT Madras was one of the places that I applied, but later on I learned that quite a few students from computer science department had applied to Microsoft research internships. But I think now there are a lot more opportunities too, in that COVID has opened up the idea of remote internships all over, right? So you all should feel free to email. A good starting point is the people you meet in the seminar series here. You can reach out to one of us and see if you would like to work with us over the summer. And I think working remotely also reduces the barrier from our end to support you, in that if you were to come here in person, the number of steps and I think approvals that one might want to get would be longer than doing this remotely. I don't know that just yet, but you should certainly reach out to all of us if that's a path you're interested in.
And maybe I should also take a moment to mention it to the students, because one of the things we are seeing is the availability of time and juggling. I think many students have responded. They would say, oh, the technical sessions are great. Unfortunately, we don't have the time. And there would be responses that say, oh, I'm interested in applying to the US and so on. Unfortunately, I don't have the time. And here I want to highlight very clearly, students, that this is an opportunity to interact with the professor from the other side of the world. If this is a path that's of interest, there is really no better opportunity right from where you are today.
That's true. Yeah.
So please make use of the opportunity. I understand sometimes it could be many students are from the hostel, some connectivity challenges have been there. We're willing to work with you to find alternatives. So please make use of the opportunity. Thank you. Thank you, Bhuvana.
It's true. Thanks, Karthik. So, yeah, I think about summer internships. I understand in the middle of the semester, it's going to be quite challenging. I'm not recommending that, but over summer, since we don't have classes and CEG anyway, keep your options open to identify teams, and just from the list of topics that you hear in this seminar, see what interests you or what piques your interest. So one of the questions in the form that I have here is to just list the courses that you think you enjoy, not necessarily course areas that you want to explore. I think that's still pretty vague, but among the courses that you've already taken, tell me which courses interested you the most. You may not have gotten an S in that, but still you would have still enjoyed that course. List that. It's also an exercise for yourself to go through your curriculum and see which one was interesting. It can be a math course, it can be a physics course, it doesn't have to be electrical engineering or ECE course, ECE specific course. Just think through your courses and see which one you like and go through these seminars. And thanks for reminding me about this too, Karthik. I think I went on a monologue the first 10 minutes, but I do want to encourage each one of you to stop me. Also because I get tired. So every 10 minutes, if you stop me and ask a question, that'll be a break for me. So to be considerate to me, please do ask questions, stop myself and ask anything that you have in mind. Yeah, so after my summer internship, I thought wireless and communications was interesting to me. But again, communication is such a vast area. I did not have clarity on what in communication. So I had a general research statement saying I'm interested in communication. Here are the projects that I did. And it wasn't a long list of projects. This one summer internship is all I had about wireless or communications project and some course projects. That was it. And I think until mid-March or so, I got all rejects, and I only applied for PhD because I like I mentioned earlier, I thought if I want to go teach in a good place, I have to have a PhD. So I only applied for PhD, and until mid-March, I only got rejects. And I had a job offer, so I was convinced that I'm going to go work in a company and maybe try again the next year. And I still remember this. 2011 was the Cricket World Cup, and India won that year, right? So after India-Pakistan semi-finals, I wasn't checking email on a regular basis, by the way. I feel old when I say that. But after that match, I checked my email after about a week or so, I think. And that was the day I received the two grad school offers, only 2 grad school offers that I got. A lot of my friends were already thinking about their roommates, I-20 and so on. And that's the first time I was seeing an offer. So I was really delighted. At the same time, I was also I had started getting a little worried by late March that I don't have anything in mind. So when I got those 2 offers, I went back to one of my professors. And again, CG has been a major contributor to my path and a constant in my journey so far. So when I spoke to my advisor, my undergrad advisor, he said, well, Georgia Tech was one of the places that I got an offer from. His earlier student from CG is at Georgia Tech, and he heard that his advisor is looking for students in communications area. So I immediately reached out to his advisor, and that's my advisor too. So we ended up having multiple conversations, and we realized that his team would be that I could be a fit in his team and vice versa. So coming back to my point of keep your options open, and that if think if I had not talked to my advisor, my undergrad advisor, about the opportunities that I had, and just tell him that these are the offers I had, what do you think about it? I wouldn't have gotten my PhD offer from Georgia Tech. I most likely would have gone into the other place, because my funding was confirmed there. With Georgia Tech, it wasn't clear to me until I spoke to my advisor. So talk to people whom you trust. And it's easy to say in the future, but do keep your hopes high, even if you think things aren't going great. Things will fall in place, and you will find a path. More than things fall in place, you'll find your path soon.
Is it also, do you have, because this is a CGN network, I'm also curious if you could mention anything about your advisor's alma mater and how if it's relevant here.
Oh, right. That's right. You'll all hear from my advisor soon. That's Professor Raghupati Sivakumar. He's also a CEG alum. And so my lab, I think, so the person that I mentioned earlier, my undergrad advisor, he put me in touch with another student, Sriram Lakshmanan. He's a CEG alumni. He was in my lab, and his advisor and my advisor is Raghupati Sivakumar. So I think CG, until I graduated, CG was in my life all the time. So my advisor will be giving one of the seminars later in the series as well. And then when I went to grad school, I think when you guys leave campus and go to different place, you'll find kinship in different forms, right? People who speak your language, people here who are from the same region, and so on. And I found a group of CG alum, a lot of Chennai folks too, but a smaller CG group within Georgia Tech, and that was my haven too. So cherish your network here. Your friends now will be potential managers, potential colleagues. So they'll be your support system all along. And then when you're applying to grad school too, when I was applying to grad school, I'm guessing that is still an ongoing thing in campus. We got a list of statement of purposes from our seniors, and that was a good reference point for us to write. If that is not the case, feel free to reach out to me. I should still have access to the 10-year-old statement of purposes. And I can share my own too if anybody would like, but I think that'll be dated. You might want a more recent one. But again, alumni network helped so much. A good statement of purpose is important to get into grad school, right? And I've talked to my friends who did not have that support and who were scrambling to write from scratch. They were worried about what to write, what not to write. Getting that feedback from a lot of people, getting some references is quite nice. Maybe I can stop here and ask, how many of us in the class today are interested in grad school? Thinking about grad school, maybe you can raise your hands. I see 1, 2. Oh, okay. So those of us who are interested in that, please do start thinking about it already. It's actually, yeah, I'm guessing you're already thinking about it, thinking about GRE, but when I was thinking of grad school, until I was done with GRE, I was only thinking about GRE, but start thinking about your statement right away and see what all you will write there. That will give you a sense of what all you want to explore. Whether you're going for master's or PhD, you may not know your research area. You may not know what all to look for, but if you sit down and think, you'll start knowing what you're enjoying and what you're hating. That's also important to know what you're hating.
And if I could also interrupt with one more piece of information, Bhuvana. So we, in running the mentoring program, a popular thing was about applying to grad school and so on. And
Uh-huh.
because you highlighted this chain of knowledge being passed from one batch to another, it could also be disrupted. It could go off by if there is a chain that
That's
gets
true.
cut in
Yeah.
the middle. So an online space where you can store these things
Ah,
is what this gold database is.
okay.
It's a Gindi Online Life database, which has a bunch of different articles. It has the most popular one is actually one about applying to the to the US and
I
so on.
see. I see.
So if as for the student side, if you would like to take a look at it, go please read it. And if you are a contributor, if you would like to share some of your SOPs or your feedback, you can go in there and put a link to your Google Docs and so on.
Ah, I
You
see.
can, so
You mean
please
so
check it out.
students can upload their SOP and someone else can give a feedback? Is that?
So yeah,
Uh-huh.
it's essentially like a wiki online. So
Ah,
if you
nice.
have a Google Doc for your own thing, and then you have a link to whatever material, I
Mhm.
mean, of course, it can't be copyrighted as long as it's your own material. Yes, you
Mhm.
can. It's a Creative Commons license. It's available
I
for
see.
sharing. So please
Very
do
nice.
check it out if it's useful.
And then I'll go look at it too. So, like you pointed out, I think we received it from our seniors and someone passed down to our next batch. Yeah, it's possible that we have lost the chain there. And also, one might feel shy uploading their own SOP, thinking maybe this is good, maybe this is not. So you might miss out on some of them if one is not diligent about it. But this is a great idea. So those who are thinking about it, please do check it out too. And I'll go look at it as well and not lose this link. So I think all of these backstory is to say, I'm not saying everything happens because of one particular place or one particular institution, but keep your support system going, keep your community going, and your friends now will support you throughout, and you'll form new friends. You will form new friendships. You will form new communities, new groups. You have to. That's how we all grow, right? If we are stuck in one place, we'll not have room to grow. But we are already in a good place. So, make the most out of that and keep making use of that support network. And there's one more path where until recently, I think I would say my undergrad still supported me in that right after my PhD, I was still deciding between academic job and industry job. And when you guys get to that, I'm sure every one of you will go through that thought process. So I wasn't sure, and my advisor helped me a lot in thinking through that. And as I was preparing my application package, I attended some workshops, and behold, there was a CG in that workshop. And that was the first time I ever met that person. We didn't have any mutual friends, but we hit it off because we had the same undergrad, and we could relate to a lot of things from our undergrad. And without any hesitation, in fact, two people, not just one, without any hesitation, they both shared their application with me, and they gave me a lot of feedback on my job talks, my academic job talks, my application package, CV. One of them, I think I ended up using one of their templates for my CV in my academic job search. And one of them is your next speaker, Ram Durai Rajan. So Ram and I did not know each other at all, but we met at this workshop. Our only common point was CG, but he was extremely helpful in me putting together my application package, only because we both related to CG and both our love for CG. So I'm not saying you have to find CG alum to grow in your career, but it won't hurt for sure. And be happy about the place that you're in, and make use of the connections. And you can already see there are so many alumni that are interested in helping out, that are interested in giving back. So all you have to do is ask. And then when you ask, you might get no. That's okay. If you ask 10 and get one yes, that's still a success, right? So at the end of that, any asks from you guys? Any questions? Any thoughts at this moment? So those who are not applying to grad school, maybe I think I didn't see their hands up. What are you guys thinking? Are you planning on grad school in India, or are you in preparation for your, I think, campus interviews and so on? Or anyone exploring MBA and preparing for CAT, right?
Yep. Maybe I think good to call a few names. Then we'll see if love to hear. Jessima, could you share? And I see Divyashri already responding.
Oh,
Yeah, please, Jessima, if you can
Yes,
share what your thoughts.
Hi, ma'am. Hi, sir.
Hello.
So as of now, I'm looking for placements, and
okay.
I have grad school at the back of my head, but not now because I don't know which path I should go with. You know, the domain. I still haven't figured that out. So
Yeah.
as of now, it's placement, but I really want to do masters
nice.
too.
I like to be in school, so I encourage anyone who say I want to be in school to continue to be in school. I think that's my happy place. So if this is anyone else thinking along these lines, if you think you're unsure about grad school, talk to people, talk to recent alumni, talk to one of us, and see if you want to just give it a try, and then you can choose. So you can have both the options with you. Maybe I'll ask, just bring in one more person. Abhinan, what are your plans?
Hi, ma'am. Hi, sir. And so currently I'm planning to apply for masters in, I'm not really completely sure about the country or the universities and all, but as of now I've given my GRE, and so like that is what I was prepping for the past 1 month, and currently I'm going to focus on college, and then probably after the semester is over I can go back to the whole application process and
yeah. That's good. And I would say before you submit your application, you guys have about 2 semesters left, right? Summer and 7th semester. See to it that you can add one more project to your resumes. Maybe keep that as your goal, because preparing application, yes, it's interesting. At the same time, having a strong list of projects in your resume is always a positive thing, both for placements and grad school application. So focus on some new projects that you've not done, or new skill set that you can develop in summer and 7th semester if you can.
Yeah, for sure. I was actually looking at the IIT summer fellowship thing myself.
Okay.
So I think the deadlines are currently over, and I would have totally applied for it. But I also have another internship which I got through college, so it's gonna happen at the same time.
Okay, yeah.
So
like I said, I think IT is one example that I got to know about. But if there are opportunities outside that, you should definitely try it out. And an industry internship is always fun to get to know the real world as soon as you can, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so I'll probably start sharing my screen and we can talk about my current research. So there was one more switch that happened in my career, in my short career so far. So my PhD was in biological communication networks, where I worked with synthetic biologists who were building bacterial sensors. They would engineer bacteria, live bacteria, to sense a certain input. For example, if you were to sense a particular chemical or certain amount of, say, enzymes in an environment, they would engineer bacteria which are naturally sensors by themselves, because they have to learn their environment and then act together. So synthetic biologists are exploring this new area of engineering these sensors to build what we want them to sense. So when that was going on, my advisor and some of the biologists were collaborating on potentially bringing in a communication aspect to that. So if we have these sensors, how do we connect these sensors, and what's the best way to communicate between sensors get information out of that and so on. So I was seeing still as a theoretical problem, in that my collaborators would build these sensors and we would have experiments with real sensors and network, but without any biology background, I couldn't do any of the experiments. So most of my work was on simulations or theoretical evaluation, but my love for hardware and hands-on experience continued. I collaborated with some of my lab mates on certain wireless projects, but my core thesis was on biological sensor networks. So when I started my position here in Wisconsin, I renewed my interest in wireless and purely evaluation or prototyping based research. So systems research is what I started exploring. And one of the first problems that I worked on, or my student and I worked on, was inspired purely from a casual conversation. So in my first semester here, we had new faculty workshop, and all the faculty that were hired that year were invited to the workshop, or just that event. It's a casual event, food and drinks. You just talk to people, get to know each other. And one of the faculty I met was from Soil Sciences department, and he was telling me that he's interested in data analytics, particularly to study the moisture level in a large field. So if you have fields, acres and acres of field, and if you want to study the water level across the entire field, you need to place sensors at multiple locations. But today, a bottleneck to those systems are communication cost, in that if you deploy a sensor in the field, and people have built moisture sensors, you can buy it on Amazon. So sensor is not too expensive, but if you deploy it in a field that's say a few hundred miles from the city, you still have to go to that farm to retrieve that data every few weeks. And that's what people do now. An alternative is to send that data in real time to a receiver, right? Just like we do with our phones. Anytime we have something, we can upload to a cloud and receive that. But at home or outside, we have connectivity to Wi-Fi or cellular network. But when you go to a remote farm, especially in a country like the US, which is so vast, connectivity through cellular is not 100%. And when you think of, when you visit these farms, you'll know that they are so far away, even from the farmers' homes, that you don't have any connectivity at those locations. So their current solution was that each sensor will collect data, say a moisture content at that point, and there is a storage, meaning you will store that data on an SD card, and that SD card will be constantly powered. So it is stored. There's no communication happening. And after every week or every month, someone will go and physically retrieve that. A second option was to put in a satellite networked device or a transmitter, but that was quite expensive. Even for the storage, there was a lot of cost associated with it because of power constraints, in that you have to keep that on all the time, which means you need some power. A battery wouldn't last that long. So they were powering it through a solar panel. And all of that added up to close to $2,000, $3,000, when the sensor was only, even the best sensor was maybe a few hundreds of dollars. So more than 70% of their cost was due to lack of a communication network. And my conversation with him was just that, are there any products out there that we can use to address this? And his research is not really on data collection either. His research was purely on data analysis, but their problem was they couldn't find a way to collect this data in an efficient way. So I was still exploring a different set of problems, and I told him maybe I can look around and see if there are any products out there, any technologies out there that I can point to. And those interactions resulted in us learning that long-range wireless communication is still an open problem, and there are a lot of open research problems to solve in that. And that got me excited, because now you have a real-world problem that needs a solution, and there are fundamental challenges to solving that problem. So one of my PhD students' research thesis got started on that area, and he's continuing in this new area of low-power wide area networks LPWANs for short. And there are some research, there are some products that are out there to address this, but it still has some fundamental challenges. And that again triggered my students' thesis on LPWANs entirely. So back to my earlier point of keep your mind open, be open to talk to people about your interests, and that could bring in, that could give you new ideas. And all these advice, of course, will be more relevant when you go to grad school, when you're in research. But I think even in general, this could be an approach you can take for your life.
Can you also ask another question? I mean, this is all hearing about it is real fun, right? It's very interesting to hear about it. I'm not a communications person, so this is all. It may be a very simple question. I mean, when you mentioned in this situation of long range, maybe even low, I don't know if it's low data amount that you're, I mean, we hear about AM radio and FM radio and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Are they, is it possible to use any of the, those kinds of technologies here? Or?
Oh, a really good question, Karthik. So my discussion today and in our next session tomorrow is going to be on that, on what trade-offs can we make to achieve this long-range communication. So I'm going to start sharing my screen, and we can discuss just a few things in the time we have left. But yeah, that's actually one of the key trade-offs that we build on, in that many of these long-range systems may not need high data rate. You're able to see my screen, right? Okay, so one of the first questions I want to ask everyone, and this is where I'm hoping you all can unmute yourself and respond, because I think, or maybe I can keep the chat channel open too. Yeah, so if you were to think of the problem that I just mentioned now, right, which is in a remote farm, you have sensors deployed all over the farm. Sorry, let me try and view gallery so that I can see if someone is unmuting themselves and speaking to.
So don't worry, Bhuvana. I will interrupt you if there is any questions from the students.
Okay, yeah,
Please go on.
Oh, sure. So here's where I would like you all to unmute yourself and start participating in this discussion. So let's say I'm giving you this problem that no research problem just yet. Let's assume there is an outdoor environment and outdoor farm, and you have to deploy 10 sensors. Let's begin with that. 10 different sensors, all of them measuring temperature and moisture level. And the sensor is given to you. And we want to collect that data wirelessly. So the architecture that I'm giving you is, say here is a large field. I'm giving you 5 sensors, and just like they may not be equidistant. So they're all talking to, that's my receiver, let's say. So these are all sensor with a wireless transmitter. And there is a receiver, and this receiver, let's say, is connected by wire to your internet infrastructure somehow. So you have, just like you have Wi-Fi at home, right? Your phone or laptop's connection all the way to your Wi-Fi access point is wireless. From your Wi-Fi access point to the rest of the world is wired connection. So let's assume the same infrastructure, but the receiver to transmitter is wireless, and receiver to the rest of the world is wired. So what all wireless technologies comes to your mind when you think of this link? What technologies can I use? I think I told you about Wi-Fi. Let's keep Wi-Fi as an option. So let me write down Wi-Fi as one such wireless technology. Anything else that comes to your mind?
Bluetooth.
Sorry?
Bluetooth.
Bluetooth. Someone said Bluetooth. Okay, so Bluetooth is one such wireless technology. Anything else? how do you guys connect to internet when you're not at home or not at a coffee shop? 2G or 3G, right? So cellular network in general. Any other options that anyone has in mind? And probably this is a good time for you to open that Google form and start with the first question. And I guess someone joined after we shared the Google Forms. I'm going to paste it just once again. If no one, if everyone is able to see the Google form, please follow that link. You have to log in through some email account, some Gmail. So log into that. Okay, so we spoke about one more as when I was introducing this problem, right, which was satellite-based network. So I think you guys might have seen in the news about StarX or some of these companies trying to provide internet connectivity through satellite altogether. But even before that, satellite-based communication has been around for a while, right? People who are going into remote areas would carry satellite phones just to talk to each other only through voice communication. So satellite is still a possibility, and in places where there are no cellular connectivity, people use satellite phones to talk to each other, and satellite-based connection for data transmission is a feasibility also. Just that it's going to be expensive in terms of getting a subscription, powering that satellite device, and so on. How many of us are not able to access the form and submit that question yet? Because we're going to answer these questions as we speak and as we continue the session. So I would like you to do this in live. So do raise your hand if you've answered question number 1 in the form. Okay, so I'm seeing quite a few hands up. Okay, so I think I'll move on to our next discussion. And so let me tell you a little bit about these wireless technologies and why some could be useful, some could not be used in such an environment. So let's start with Wi-Fi, or actually let's start with Bluetooth. So we all might have used some form of Bluetooth devices in our day-to-day network, right? Bluetooth headphones or Bluetooth speakers. So what range of, what in terms of meters or in terms of number of rooms across which you can go and still be connected to your Bluetooth device? How far away do you think you can go when it comes to a Bluetooth device? You can unmute yourself and just say a number that you think is appropriate.
Maybe around 50 meters. I mean,
50
from what I've
meters?
observed.
It's in, yeah, it's in few meters to tens of meters, right? The maximum range. If you go, definitely if you leave your device at home and Bluetooth device outside your home, you're not going to hear that. So one of the drawbacks of Bluetooth is that it's going to be a short range communication. What about Wi-Fi? Do you think Wi-Fi is longer than Bluetooth or shorter than Bluetooth?
Longer than Bluetooth.
Longer than
probably
Bluetooth. So, yeah, so we clearly have used Wi-Fi across multiple rooms, and we were able to still be connected to our access point, but it still doesn't reach more than few tens of meters, right? Or up to hundreds of meters, but not beyond that. So when you're connected, when your access point is at home and you leave maybe your apartment complex, you stop getting connected to your home's Wi-Fi access point. So tens to hundreds of meters is the range that we can expect from, so I would group both Bluetooth and Wi-Fi under, say, tens to hundreds of meters. What about cellular 2G, 3G? How long do you think you can be from your base station? So first of all, the access point you have, modem you have at home for a Wi-Fi access point, the equivalent of that for a cellular network is the base station. We all might have seen those large base stations in Chennai all around, right? So those are the equivalent or the closest to the access point at Wi-Fi, in that in a Wi-Fi network, our end device, our phones and laptops, they talk directly to the access point. In a cellular network, our phones talk directly to that base station that we have on top of buildings or in a remote field, let's say. So approximately, what do you think your distance from a base station could be and still be connected to a cellular network? Is it still in meters or kilometers? Maybe that's something you can start with. How many of us think it's in kilometers, our distance from the base station? Or actually, yeah, raise your hand if you think our distance from the base station can be a few kilometers and we can still be connected to a cellular base station. Okay, I'm seeing some hands now. Right, so we have experienced this in our day-to-day life, right? So when we have cellular network, we may not always be closest to the base station, but we were still connected pretty well to that. So with the network, cellular network, it can be tens of kilometers maybe. And I'm going to add this myself in that satellite network, and we won't discuss much of this. It can be hundreds of kilometers, because the way a satellite network would work is we send some signal from our transmitter, it goes all the way to the satellite, and the satellite is going to broadcast it back to Earth. So that could cover a much wider range. So one of the reasons for such wide range of communication distances is there are many factors, but one of the major reasons is something called free space, not free space, but path loss. So when you send an electromagnetic signal, so for example, all these communication that we talked about, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, cellular, satellite, they all use electromagnetic signals to communicate. So when we send an EM signal from our transmitter, it's going all the way to the receiver. It is going through the air medium, and it's going to start losing energy in a crude sense as it goes through a path. So when it propagates from one location to another, it's going to face a lot of path loss. And that path loss is the reason when we go longer and longer from the access point or from the base station, we see weaker and weaker signals. So it's just like the way we speak, right? When someone is closer to us, we're able to hear them at the best. And when we go farther and farther away, our voice fades, and at some point we'll stop hearing them altogether. So the same analogy on electromagnetic signal. When you're closest to your access point, you're listening everything from the access point, and as you go farther and farther away, you're going to start losing your signal's strength. And when the receiver is beyond a certain range, you'll not receive anything. And so this path loss, for example, if my transmit power was say PTX and my receive power was PRX, approximately my PRX will be PTX minus this path loss. So the smaller the path loss, larger is my receive power, right? So if I lose the least, I'm going to receive the most. So we want to reduce our path loss if we want to receive at the highest power. And this plays a role in looking at these distances of communication for each of these devices. So there are different models for path loss. One of the most commonly used one is called free space path loss, which says your path loss is inversely proportional to wavelength. Or in other words, it's directly proportional to frequency. So larger is your frequency of operation, your carrier frequency. You might, when you tune into AM and FM radio, you would you know 101.2 FM, for example. That 101.2 is your carrier frequency. So that carrier frequency, when you have higher and higher in hertz, the larger is your path loss. So to give you a sense of those numbers, both Bluetooth and Wi-Fi, they operate in approximately 2.4 gigahertz. And Wi-Fi also operates in 5 gigahertz. Cellular network, on the other hand, I haven't looked at numbers for cellular providers in India, but most providers in the US are within 500 megahertz to 900 megahertz. So you see a major difference in that range, right? You're going from gigahertz to megahertz. So clearly you can see that the frequency has decreased from Wi-Fi to cellular network, and proportionally the path loss is going to decrease from cellular Wi-Fi. Path loss is going to decrease from Wi-Fi to cellular. So when your path loss has come down for cellular, it's able to reach longer distances. Again, this is one of the factors, but one of the important factors in deciding path loss. So without knowing anything else, if I ask you to choose a frequency of operation for long range communication, which frequency will you choose? The lowest one or the highest one? Maybe I can ask this. Raise your hand if you think you'll choose the lowest carrier frequency. Raise your hand if you think you'll choose the highest carrier frequency. Okay, we're seeing some hands. Raise your hand if you think frequency doesn't matter. Okay, so at least we agree that frequency matters, but I do want to bring back our path loss description to say that path loss is directly proportional to frequency, and we want lower path loss to get most receive power. So to increase range, we want to decrease path loss, which can be done by decreasing your frequency of operation, which is why we would prefer something like cellular for outdoor and something like Wi-Fi for indoors, because it has Wi-Fi has higher frequency than cellular. So our question 2 is question 2 and 3 can be answered with this discussion. I would like you guys to answer that, and I planned a few more questions for today's discussion, but I think early on I rambled too much about my background and we couldn't talk about it further. But we'll discuss this in our next, in tomorrow's discussion. But I would like you to still answer these two, and it's okay if you randomly pick an answer to the other questions. Please do submit this form so that I get a sense of what you're thinking about these, about the areas that you're interested in, and the topics that we've discussed so far. But with that, I'll stop today's discussion.
Thank you so much, Bhuvana, and you're on time. And thank you so much for. I will post this form as an assignment that's due before class tomorrow.
Okay.
So
yeah.
students get a chance to answer, and then. And the reminder for the students, tomorrow Professor Bhuvana will be continuing the discussion of the same topic at the same time. So 7 p.m. IST, you will hear from the professor again. Thank you so much. I will stop recording at this time.
See you all tomorrow then. Bye.